pero a la vez tengo una perspectiva un poco polémica que creo
Un
que
poquito, ¿eh?
pues soy como dije, soy muy novato en eso. No, pues no tengo cualificaciones.
Today I am here with my friend,
My name is Kai.
and he's going to be sharing with us his journey learning languages. So Kai, where are you from?
So I was born in Honolulu, Hawaii, and then when I was young, my family moved to Southern California. When I was in high school, we moved to Arkansas, and now I'm here in Texas.
And what was your native language?
English.
Is English?
Mhm.
Okay. Do you guys speak any other languages in the household?
No, everyone in my family just speaks only English.
And what language have you learned throughout your life?
So throughout my life, I've studied several different languages, but the languages that I speak now are Spanish and Portuguese.
Spanish and Portuguese.
Mhm.
And how did you get interested in learning those languages?
So Spanish, as I mentioned, I was raised mostly in Southern California, so there's a huge Spanish-speaking population there. So I grew up hearing the Spanish language, and then my family used to take a lot of trips to Tijuana because my uncle owned a shack down there. So I was exposed to the language from very young, and I became interested in learning it. Then when I was in 8th grade, we were allowed to start taking Spanish classes. But on the second day of class, there was budget issues with my school district, so they canceled the Spanish program. So that was really disappointing for me. But I eventually did start learning it again when I was in 9th grade. So when I was 15 years old, I started officially learning Spanish.
Did you have a lot of Spanish-speaking friends at all when you were growing up?
The Unfortunately, not a lot. I think like the neighborhoods in the town that I lived in, it was mostly English speaking. Like I heard Spanish on the streets, but I didn't know a lot of people that use the language in their daily lives. Nowadays, fortunately, I do have more Spanish in my life, and I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of Spanish speakers and getting to use the language in my life.
Okay. And tell me a little bit about your journey with Portuguese then.
Sure. So when I was 19, I was living in Arkansas at the time, and in the town I was living in Arkansas, there was a school for foreigners who wanted to learn English. So the school put out an ad for Americans, native people who were born in America, native English speakers, who could help as conversation partners the students at the who were learning English. So I signed up to be a conversation partner, and the English language school assigned me 2 Brazilian students who were learning English. So I had to meet with them for I think between 30 minutes to an hour every week, so that we could practice the English that they were learning. And then eventually we decided to do a language exchange where they would teach me Portuguese, and then I would help them with English. So that was how I got started with Portuguese.
And do you think that a whole language exchange helped out a lot as far as learning Portuguese?
Absolutely. Because I think for myself, I don't learn as much from a classroom. I feel more comfortable learning from life, learning from people, and especially for me, I think that the purpose of languages is relationships. It's communication. So I think the languages, like I've studied a lot of languages in my life because I'm interested in it.
Yeah.
But I've it's been difficult for me to internalize languages that I haven't had a chance to use
Yeah.
in my life versus like languages where I know native speakers, where I feel connected to the culture. That's I think it helps me to internalize the language itself.
So what would you say that you learned from your Spanish classes?
From my Spanish classes, I think I learned mostly the grammar of the language, which I enjoy. I know not a lot of people enjoy like conjugations and grammar. I actually thought that was interesting. I think because yeah, I'm interested in logic, and I think that languages, like the grammar of languages, it is logic. So I was very interested in that. But I think it's one thing to learn grammar, and it's another thing to understand the real life spoken language and to be able to produce it. So I think that like the high school classes gave me a good foundation in the grammar. Like I appreciate those classes, but enabled me to feel more comfortable in the language was meeting people. And then I mean that's enriching in a lot of ways. Not just, I mean, of course your language skills improve when you meet people from Spanish-speaking countries, but I think I love just meeting people from other countries in general because you learn new perspectives, new ways of seeing the world. So it's very enriching.
And what did your family say when you started to get really interested in learning language?
Um, Wow, I think they were supportive. I don't know. I mean, I can't expect my family to have the same interests as me.
Yeah.
But no, I think they're supportive. And I think they think it's cool, and it's I I remember I was in Brazil, like I was traveling in Brazil after I was had made those friends. A few years later, I had the opportunity to travel to Brazil,
Okay.
and then I was skyping with my parents, and we were speaking English. I was speaking English with my parents,
Yeah.
but then the family that I was staying with, they like came into the room and they started saying something to me in Portuguese, and I responded in Portuguese, and my parents were like, what on earth? Like, it was so weird for them to hear me speaking Portuguese.
Wow.
So but I think it's just interesting for them. That's what I would say.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Have they developed any interest in learning a language now?
Not really. No.
No.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
It hasn't spread to them yet. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think when and that's okay. I mean, because I have a lot of interests, so there are I mean, I think I have common interests in other areas with my family. So and like I said, they support me in. I'm an individual. I have my own interests, and they have theirs. So that's all right. But it's definitely something. So I don't have my own family yet. But when I do, when I get married and when I have kids, something that I would really like is to have a multilingual family. That's one of my dreams for myself.
That's one of my dreams as well.
Yeah.
Would you say that from your Spanish classes, you were able to speak Spanish fluently?
No, I don't think that I was, and I think that I think that I had a good basis in the grammar from the classes, but I don't think that I was comfortable fully speaking it, and I don't feel 100% fluent in Spanish even to this day, even though I'm very interested in the language.
Yeah.
I think it depends. There are so many different dialects of Spanish, and it's difficult to understand all of them. And I think it depends on the topic. I mean, I view it more as like a lifelong process that I want to be a student of Spanish for the rest of my life, and continue to improve, and always be a student, always be improving. So that's more the mentality that I have.
So if you didn't get fluent from your high school Spanish classes, how did you develop your speaking skills after your classes?
Sure. So I was very privileged in that I had the opportunity to attend college after I graduated from high school. So I graduated from high school in Arkansas, and there are a lot of scholarship opportunities for high school students from Arkansas who choose to go to college in Arkansas, primarily because Walmart has their headquarters in Arkansas, and they have a lot of programs. Yeah, they have a lot of they're a very huge company, obviously, and they have a lot of programs for local Arkansas students who choose to stay in Arkansas. So I was very fortunate in that I received scholarship money to study at college, and so I took a lot of Spanish classes when I was in college. That really helped me. And then in a college environment, there are a lot of international students. So I had the privilege of getting to meet a lot of international students. Especially in Arkansas, we have a lot of students from Panama, because the former president of Panama actually attended college at the University of Arkansas.
Are you serious?
Yes. So,
What? Oh,
so
wow.
we have that connection. So now a lot of Panamanian students study in Arkansas. And then another really cool thing that happened is I was able to use some of my extra scholarship funds to study in Spain, which was maybe one of the best experiences of my life. I was in Spain for 7 months.
7 months.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So yeah, it was an immersive Spanish experience, and I love the Spanish people. I mean, I love all cultures, but I really developed an affinity for people from Spain. I was very welcomed there, and I made a lot of friends. We actually so I was studying in the north of Spain, but I made some friends with these local Spaniards who actually had an apartment by the beach in the south of Spain. So we were able to take a road trip down to the south of Spain, and we stayed down there for a week, and it was incredible. Like, in Spain is, I mean, anyone who's been there knows this. It's just gorgeous. Like, all five senses, you just get overloaded. So it was incredible, and that really helped my language skills as well. And then I've just been working on it ever since. I mean, now we live in San Antonio, Texas, where many people speak Spanish. So I've been very fortunate to have a lot of Spanish speakers in my life. I think another big aspect here too is that there's a lot of music in Spanish, like on the radio, and so since moving, I lived in San Antonio now for 3 years, and I've gotten really into like reggaeton, bachata,
okay.
music in Spanish since I moved here. So
Yep.
that really helps. And sometimes when I'm like when I'm trying to speak, I'll think of like song lyrics, and then
Yeah.
I'll substitute like the structure of the sentence that I want will be the song lyric,
Be the song,
and then like
okay.
I'll substitute like the words that I want that are relevant to what I want to say like into the song lyrics.
Oh.
So yeah, that helps me a lot.
That
Yeah.
that's a really good idea.
Mhm.
Don't you heard that? That's a really good tip.
Yeah.
Okay, wow, that's amazing.
Mhm.
Could you tell us a little bit more about like what part of Spain? I don't know anything about Spain. I've never been there before, so what specific part of Spain?
So-
I know that Spain. Were you?
Yeah, so Spain, the administrative divisions of Spain are called autonomous communities,
Autonomous
like kind of similar to states in the U.S. So the community that I was in was called Castile y León,
Castile y
and
León.
I was in a city called Salamanca, which has the oldest, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it has the oldest university in Europe. So I was able to take just normal classes in Spain, like with not only with Spanish students, but with students from other international students
Okay.
from a variety of different countries. I met students from Germany, from China, from Spain, well, obviously from Spain, but also
Wow.
from France. And then Spain is cool too because there are a lot of subcultures within Spain, and it's like there are Catalans, Basque people, Galicians, and there are a lot of different accents too. It's very interesting, just the diversity that there is within Spain. So I loved it.
And did you pick up any of those accents while you were there?
Yeah, it's funny. I remember, like after I was in Spain, coming back to Arkansas where I was living at the time, and like I mentioned, there are a lot of Panamanians in Arkansas, and so I was like, there were a bunch of Panamanians around me, and I was listening to them talk, and I was like, wow, like it's just interesting how different it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember, but. So yeah, I think at the time I did try to emulate like the Castilian, the Spanish accent, but now I'm not sure how I sound now, but I mean now I think the most relevant accent for me now is probably Mexican, because that's because of where we live, the most predominant form of Spanish is Mexican Spanish, so that's what I would like to emulate, I think.
Now explain to me what Castilian Spanish means.
Oh, sure. So Castile is a region in Spain where like
Region in
the
Spain.
Spanish language originally comes from. So that part of Spain is called Castile.
Castile.
So interesting fact that a lot of Spanish learners may know is that in some parts of the world the Spanish language is called Español. That's what we call it here in Texas. But in some parts of the world the Spanish language is called Castellano.
Castellano.
So Castellano is the more politically correct way to refer to the Spanish language because there are many languages that are spoken in Spain. Catalan is Spanish; it's spoken in Spain.
Okay.
Galician is Spanish; like it's a language from Spain. Basque is Spanish. So why should the Castilian language be called Spanish when there are all these languages from Spain?
Yeah.
So we can a more politically correct way to refer to the language is Castellano.
Wow.
Yeah. hmm
I did not know that, so that's really good to know.
Yeah.
So those other languages in Spain, did you learn those at all?
No, I was interested in it, and I still am. I think, for example, the Catalan language to me, it's like honey. It's music to my ears, but I love it. But no, unfortunately, no. I was focused on learning Spanish, so I didn't learn any other languages. But who knows in the future? I mean, I'm very open-minded to learning any language. I'm open-minded to living overseas, really in any country. So I think I think I would always try to learn the language of wherever I'm living.
Yeah.
And or if who knows if someone comes into my life who is a speaker of another language, I'm also open-minded to learning that person's language.
Wow.
So we'll see. But yeah, I love all languages. Yeah, and I think all the languages that are spoken in Spain are to me are beautiful. I love all languages. So.
And do these sound very similar to Spanish or Castellano?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Catalan is a Romance language, so it is similar to Spanish. An interesting fact is that I've asked a lot of different speakers of Romance languages which Romance language they think is closest to their language, and so I've asked that question to Portuguese speakers, Spanish speakers, and Catalan speakers, and they all have given me the same answer. all of them think, at least in my experience, all of them think that their language is closest to Italian.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's interesting because they can't.
Okay.
They can't. What? I don't know how that works. Can they all be close to Italian?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
Okay.
yeah, it'd be interesting. Maybe Italian is like the basis.
Yeah.
For I don't know, for Romance languages. So.
All right, now, so you talked about how you would like to, learn another language, or if you were with someone that spoke a different language,
Yeah.
then you would, attempt to learn that language. Now, tell me, what would be your plan? How exactly would you do this?
That's tough. So.
Learning from scratch.
Yeah, from scratch. I would. I think so. I think, for me, languages are about communication. So I would try and spend as much time as possible with native speakers of that language. And if I didn't have native speakers in my life, there are different websites online that you can do a language exchange with native speakers on. So I think those are super useful websites. There are also websites like ITALKI, for example, where you can hire teachers who are from the country where your target language is spoken. So I think that's very useful. And then I think trying to immerse myself as much as possible in the culture of the target language, through really anything, through YouTube videos, through music, and probably the most important aspect of culture for me, in my opinion, is music. I think, I think that's I think that we people, we connect most strongly with music. Music is so emotional, and it helps to develop that emotional connection to the language, that almost nostalgia for the culture. So I think it's very useful to listen to music in different languages.
Okay. And how have you used? We already given one example of how you use music. Could you explain some other methods that you use with music to learn different languages?
So I think just like I listen to music all the time, so I think it's useful just like to saturate myself with music in foreign languages. And I think songs that you listen to over again and again, you can memorize the lyrics, and then that's a great way to expand your vocabulary, because it's easier to memorize lyrics that are in a song versus like just a speech of normal language. So and also
as far as, are you saying like in comparison to listening to someone, or what do you mean by you said speech of? So
say I wanted to memorize just a speech of ordinary non-musical language.
Okay.
That would be very difficult, but I think that memorizing a song is a piece of cake.
I see.
So then if you have like these songs that are memorized, then that's phrases that you can use in real life, and that also expands your vocabulary. So I think that music, in my opinion, it connects with like a deeper part of our brain. Then it's so primal. So I think it's a tool that we can leverage in language learning.
Now, tell me, what makes you so interested in the Mexican accent?
Oh, I think because that's just what's around me. So yeah. So I mean, most of the Spanish speakers here in Texas are of Mexican origin. So they speak with a Mexican accent. So I think I would want to emulate the people that are around me and the people that I'm exposed to. So if I moved to Argentina, I think that I would be interested in the Argentine Spanish. So it's not. I mean, I think all accents of Spanish are beautiful, but I always want to try to learn about the culture, learn about the language of the people that are around me.
That's very beautiful. And which accent in the Spanish language sounds the best to you?
Wow, I like all of them. That's a really good question. I think I love the Colombian accent. I think Colombians sound very sweet, but I love the Mexican accent. There are a lot of accents in Spain, but I like I like the Spaniard accent. So those are my favorites right now, I think. But I'm open-minded. I like all the accents.
Okay. Yeah. I know it's like very hard to choose because they're all fairly distinct, So yeah, for me it's like hard to choose. And I'm just starting to explore a lot more with all the different accents.
Yeah.
Now, what accent would you say is the most difficult for you to understand?
There are several. So I haven't been exposed to all the accents. I've heard, for example, that the Chilean Spanish is difficult to understand.
I've heard that as well.
But I don't think I briefly did meet a Chilean once, but and I could understand him pretty well, but he probably wasn't speaking uh,
Normal.
yeah, his normal speed to me. But so, but I can't speak to that accent because I haven't really heard it. But an accent that I have heard, which I like, and I'm interested in the culture of this place. But personally, I think the dialect is hard to understand. Is Puerto Rican.
Puerto Rican. Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely a challenge for me to understand. But I'm very interested in Puerto Rican culture. I love the music. I would love to travel there someday. So, but for me personally, it's difficult to understand. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And do you think it's difficult to develop an accent, a specific accent from a Spanish-speaking country? To develop it. Like for right now, I can say right now you have a neutral accent, right? Neutral Spanish accent. But let's say if you wanted to sound more like a native from Colombia or from Mexico, do you think that it would be very difficult to obtain that accent for you?
Yeah, I think that imitating accents, yes, it is difficult, and I even feel the same way in English. Like for me to try to imitate someone else's accent, do it. I mean, we can all like try to like mimic people, but to authentically speak like someone from another culture, it's very difficult. So I don't have that ability in English to speak like a British person or to speak like an Australian or a Jamaican, but and so it's same thing in Spanish to fully achieve a foreigner's accent. I think yes, it's difficult.
How have you increased your listening comprehension?
I think I really love podcasts. So yeah, I think, or not just podcasts, but just YouTube videos in general. So and it's so accessible to us because now like we all have YouTube, and yeah, I have AirPods. So you know, like when I'm doing the dishes or cleaning, like I like to put something on in a language that I'm studying, and that I think too that helps with listening, but also I think it helps with accent development because I think we can improve our accent slowly over time, but we have to listen to very large volumes of the language to like a baby to internalize the rhythms and the sounds, and the more we hear the language, the more used to it we get. So I like to just expose myself to as much spoken language as possible, whether it's through real people, friendships that I have in real life, or through content online, or through movies. And for me, I would rather be good at listening than speaking.
Really?
Yeah, because for me, in my opinion, listening is harder because people, the way that people speak language, like the way that we're speaking now in a natural setting, it's fast, and we speak in like short utterances, and it flows very well, and it's difficult to understand. It's difficult to keep track of a speech. And so I mean, it's almost more difficult to track another person's thoughts than to track our own thoughts, which is what we're doing when we're speaking. And so listening is probably the most important skill to me, and that's what I would rather be good at than anything else.
How do you measure your progress for your languages?
That's tough, and I don't know if I really do measure my own progress because I view it more as a lifelong journey, and I think that my progress has waned as I've it's gone up and down throughout the years, depending on whether I've gotten a chance to use the language of my life or whether it's been a priority for me to improve my language skills. But I don't know. I think I don't think I measure my progress. I think that I just enjoy the process, and that's it.
Honestly, that sounds like a lot more stress-free.
yeah. And for me, it's just joy. Like I mean, it's awesome that to be able to be exposed to a different culture, and to that there are people. Like I'm really grateful that there are a lot of people who are enthusiastic about sharing their culture, and are enthusiastic about teaching and helping foreigners with their native language. And I've had many people in my life who were like ambassadors of foreign cultures to me. So I would like to be that person too, to foreigners who come here to share the English language and the American culture with them.
Outstanding. As far as your Spanish and your Portuguese language learning journey goes, How have you balanced both of those? 'Cause I've heard that those two languages are fairly similar, right?
Yeah.
So, like you get mixed up a lot.
Yeah,
Was it
they're very
hard?
similar. It's kind of it's funny. It's funny that it ended up this way because oftentimes something normal in Spanish might be something inappropriate in Portuguese or vice versa. So you can get into some trouble.
Okay.
But I think like one thing that's helped me is like focusing on the way that the languages make me feel.
Yeah.
And so it's just like Portuguese. They're similar, the Portuguese and Spanish, but I feel differently when I'm speaking them, and they feel differently in my mouth.
Really?
Yeah, so that's how I distinguish them.
Do you have like a whole strategy that you had, or it was just, I don't know, you just kind of went with the flow?
If, in terms of distinguishing them.
Yes. Start distinguishing them.
So yeah, that was a struggle for me for sure. 'Cause I started with Spanish before I started Portuguese, and then once I started studying Portuguese, then I kind of I almost forgot Spanish completely because it like took the place of Spanish in my brain.
Wow.
But I think I don't know if I had a specific strategy. I mean, one strategy that I like is just like warming up. So like listening,
Warming up.
like if I know that, like I'm going to meet a Spanish-speaking person, like I'll like listen to music in Spanish like beforehand to like get my brain in that mindset. But I think just every language to me is like an essence, like it's like a personality. So I think like focusing on that and like how I personally like emotionally connect to the language is what helps me distinguish between them. And I think that problem not only exists for languages that are similar, but also I think anyone who studies multiple languages is going to confuse them sometimes, even if they're two completely different languages.
Okay.
People who study like Chinese and Spanish might confuse the two, but for me, I think just focusing on the way that they make me feel is what helps me distinguish between them.
Ok, ahora vamos a cambiar al español por un ratico. Así es como se dice, ¿verdad? Un ratico, un rato.
Ratito, creo.
Ajá,
Sí.
algo así.
Sí.
¿En cuál país te gustaría vivir? ¿Y por qué?
Pues estoy interesado en vivir en casi todos los países del mundo. Pues el país tiene que ser seguro, claro.
Seguro.
No quiero vivir en un país peligroso,
Peligroso.
pero hay ciertos países que me llaman la atención especialmente, y a lo mejor es porque he conocido a mucha gente de esos países. Entonces creo que los países que más me llaman la atención son pues España, México y Brasil.
Y Brasil.
Pero estoy interesado en todos los países, en todos los idiomas y pues, pero si tendría que escoger tres, creo que si tuviera que escoger a tres países, creo que esos tres serían Brasil, México y España.
Ok, qué excelente. Y se me olvidó preguntarte cuál tipo de portugués estabas aprendiendo. ¿El portugués de Brasil o Europa?
De Brasil,
De Brasil.
porque los amigos a los que conocí en Arkansas eran de Brasil. Pero es interesante que dentro de Brasil hay muchos acentos distintos. Y yo tenía varios amigos de varias regiones de Brasil y el dialecto es muy distinto en todas las regiones. Y un amigo era de Sao Paulo, la ciudad de Sao Paulo, y otro era de Bahía, y otro era de un estado que se llama Minas Gerais. Y el acento en cada estado es muy distinto.
Muy distinto.
Sí.
Como que si estuvieras viviendo en un parte de Brasil no vas a entender
Puede ser.
otra persona.
Puede ser. Una cosa interesante es que mi amigo de Sao Paulo estaba viviendo, él es de Sao Paulo, habla con el acento de Sao Paulo.
De Sao Paulo.
Pero cuando yo fui a Brasil, ese amigo estaba viviendo en el nordeste, en el norte de Brasil, donde el acento es muy distinto.
Okay.
Y yo lo visité y pues yo estaba hablando con mi amigo en portugués, pero claro, yo entendía a mi amigo porque él habla como una persona de Sao Paulo. Pero cuando íbamos a la calle, yo no entendía a las personas en la calle,
¿Verdad?
las personas del norte. Y a veces mi amigo tenía que traducir el portugués de esas personas, pero él tenía que traducir del portugués al portugués,
Al portugués.
del portugués del norte hacia el portugués de Sao Paulo, un portugués más normal.
¿Y qué es lo que te cuesta entender exactamente? ¿Es el acento o se cambian las palabras en cada parte o en cada región?
Se cambian las palabras, pero a la vez es más el ritmo de hablar que me cuesta entender, sí.
Okay. ¿Cuál fue tu lugar favorito para visitar en Brasil?
En Brasil, pues probablemente Sao Paulo. Es interesante porque la mayoría de la gente pues no quiere visitar Sao Paulo. Pues en mi caso he visitado muchas partes diferentes de Brasil, pero pues si tuviera que escoger un lugar preferido sería Sao Paulo, la ciudad de Sao Paulo, porque pues mi experiencia en esa ciudad fue increíble.
Okay.
No sé, es que creo que la gente ahí en esa ciudad es súper amable y me gusta mucho la ciudad, pues me gusta mucho las ciudades grandes en general, la energía,
Grandes.
sí.
Y modernas.
Sí, exactamente, y la energía, la cultura, y pues así es, sí, soy muy fan de Sao Paulo.
Ok, ¿y tu lugar favorito en España?
En España, pues aunque yo estudié en el norte de España, me gusta mucho el sur. Pues me gustan
Es
todas
polémico.
Sí, es polémico, sí. Me gustan todas las partes del país de España. Pero si, pues, tengo que responder a la pregunta, tengo que escoger. Y si tuviera que escoger, yo escogería el sur. Porque,
El sur.
pero la parte difícil del sur es que el acento del sur es casi imposible entender.
¿Verdad? Para ti.
Sí, sí.
Para todos.
Para todos.
Como para los demás que viven en
Incluso-
el norte.
Sí, e incluso los inmigrantes de Latinoamérica que van a España no entienden el acento del sur de España. Se llama el acento andaluz. Es un acento muy lindo. Es un acento súper lindo. Es súper. Hay mucha música que se usa, que usa este acento.
Okay.
Como la música flamenco.
Flamenco. Ese acento.
Sí, sí. Normalmente cuando canta flamenco se usa el acento andaluz.
Wow.
Pero es un acento súper
Bueno saber.
es un acento súper lindo, pero es muy difícil.
Te cuesta.
Sí,
Y yo tengo entendido que bailas.
Ujú.
¿Eres un salsero, bachatero? Ok,
Pues
dígame.
soy muy novato en eso. Yo comencé a bailar hace 7 meses.
Hace 7 meses.
Sí,
Wow, eres el pie
y Joshua también es bailarín. Él baila muy bien. Y,
A veces.
Sí, por eso él baila con ritmo, no sé, con sentimiento, no sé.
Sentimiento.
Sí, y por
¿Tú
eso.
también?
Sí, pues gracias. Pues antes de eso no había bailado casi nunca en mi vida,
Yo también.
pero pues estaba hablando con una chica que a ella le gustaba bailar y por eso comencé y no sé, hay algo en el baile que me llamó la atención y antes de eso no había pensado en bailar, pero no sé, es un sentimiento muy interesante sentir la música así, mover
Claro.
con la música y especialmente los bailes que hacemos, que nosotros hacemos, que estudiamos, son la bachata y la salsa, y esos son bailes sociales. Y lo que me llama la atención de esos bailes es que son no, generalmente no son coreografía, son bailes es, es, espon- espontáneos,
Okay.
creo, no sé cómo decirlo, espontáneos.
Oh,
Espontáneos.
espontáneos.
Sí, son bailes espontáneos.
Del corazón.
Sí, y eso me gusta mucho, que no son coreografía, tienes que sentir la música en un momento y bailar
Y haz
en un
lo que
momento.
quieras.
Sí, exactamente, sí.
Y si te vas para un bar, un restaurante donde se pone música latina, ¿cuál sería tu estilo de baile preferido?
Pues, pues probablemente la bachata.
La bachata.
Sí,
¿Es tu favorita?
Sí, pues la música también, me gusta mucho la música bachata, pero a la vez tengo una perspectiva un poco polémica, que creo
Un
que
poquito, ¿eh?
pues soy, como dije, soy muy novato en eso. No tengo cualificaciones para opinar sobre el baile, pero eso es
Por ahora.
eso es la opinión de un novato. Pero en mi opinión, yo creo que la bachata es más difícil que la salsa. Y creo que la mayoría de la gente, por lo menos para mí, pero la mayoría de la gente dicen que la salsa es más difícil. Pero para mí creo que el sentimiento de la bachata es más difícil producir. No sé, pero me gusta mucho la bachata, y si tuviera que escoger solo un estilo, sería el bachata. Es mi estilo preferido. Pero sí, pero a la vez creo que es muy difícil.
Yo diría lo mismo, me cuesta escoger un
Sí.
estilo de baile, pero tienes que escoger un estilo de bachata. Para la gente que no sepa, bueno, hoy en día tenemos como más estilos de la bachata, como la bachata de la República Dominicana, entonces como la bachata clásica y también la bachata sensual. Entonces, entre estos dos estilos, ¿cuál escogerías?
Pues soy una persona muy romántica, y por eso te digo que mi estilo preferido es la bachata sensual.
Sensual.
Y no, creo que es muy lindo. Creo que la bachata sensual es más minimalista,
Minimalista.
que la bachata tradicional. Y sí, es un baile de sentimiento. Pues me gusta mucho la bachata sensual.
Se mueve todo
Todo el
todo su cuerpo. Ajá.
Sí, y creo que se necesita mucho nivel, mucha capacidad para saber cómo
Mover.
cómo controlar el cuerpo para hacer esos movimientos.
Ajá.
Y,
Sí, obviamente. Tienes que controlar tu cuerpo, no solo como,
Sí,
pero
sí.
sí, es como
Sí,
control.
por
tienes
eso,
control.
sí, y, sí,
Ajá. Son tácticos.
cuando personas saben bailar la bachata sensual bien, es muy impresionante.
Claro.
Porque eso quiere decir que la persona puede controlar el cuerpo muy bien, y es muy impresionante.
Y muy flexible también.
Sí, sí.
Eso es la clave. Muchas gracias a todos ustedes que están mirando este video mío o nuestro. Thank you all who are watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed my friend Kai's language learning story. And ¿tienes algo más para decir?
Pues gracias por ver este video, y que tengan un buen día.
Que tengan un buen día. Adiós.
Adiós.